And what is your greatest goal at the moment?
I think I look at life from the lenses of mortality a lot of times, from a place of it can end. I think our egos are so big as humans. We know there is death, but we never really think it can happen to us. And what I think that has allowed me to do is
when you ask us like the role that you can play maybe to sharpen our political system, what will come to our mind is voting. What else do you think like a citizen, a normal citizen, can play beyond voting?
That's the biggest fallacy and misconception that we have, and I think our leaders thrive by it, and they keep reiterating that wait for 2027 if you want to make any change, but it's a lie.
What is good governance to you?
I think anytime I think of good governance, then it has to be people-centric. It has to be really for the interest of the people, curated around the people, whether it's policies and whether it's projects that are to be executed. Corruption is a big it's a big issue, even in our personal lives, I'd say. As Kenyans, I think we are so used to it that it's become alien that someone isn't corrupt. We question. You hear someone waited for their passport for 2 years, they look stupid. You hear someone wants to run a campaign and they don't want to bribe voters, it's like hujui vile huwa kunaenda, kwani how daft are you?
I warmly invite you to subscribe to our YouTube podcast, Modern Day Campfire, where we advocate for mental health through a powerful lens of visual arts and meaningful conversation. This platform is a safe space for reflection, expression, and healing. Created with care and authenticity, your support not only spreads the awareness, but also strengthens a growing community that values compassion, creativity, and open dialogue. Join us today in this journey. You are welcome here. Thank you.
Today we have a very magnificent guest with us who goes by the name Mwamburi.
Okay. So, yeah.
So just out of curiosity, who is the most closest person to you?
That's a tough one, but I'd say my mom. I think I talk to my mom more than I talk to anyone else. And by virtue of that, but I also have really close friends. So it's also seasonal, I'd say. Yeah.
So if they were here today, how would they describe you on your behalf?
I think it depends. My friends would tell you I'm tough. I'm choleric, I'm annoying, know it all. My mom would probably say I'm hardworking. I would want to think so. I was a good kid. I would want to think so also. But I think that's generally me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about politics and governance.
Yeah.
And out of curiosity also, what sparked, like, where is it rooting from? Why do you prefer we talk about that topic?
I think politics and governance, it's very close to my heart. And I would say that the interest started at a very young age. From hizo enzi za social studies, mkiambiwa name the presidents and all. I keep telling my friends that the first time I watched a parliamentary session, I was in class 3. I could barely understand what was going on. My dad was traveling for work, and he was really interested in that session specifically. Akaniambia watch, alafu nikirudi jioni you'll tell me how it went. So I kept hearing Mr. Speaker. Ninashanga huyo ni nani? But I think I've had a lot of interest since then. I've also seen the power of good governance and also the ramifications of bad governance. I've been born and raised in Taita. So I've seen how good governance can transform a society, a community, and also how bad governance can take that same community or society to the pitfalls. So yeah.
Yeah, that is profound.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is good governance to you?
I think anytime I think of good governance, then it has to be people centric. It has to be really, really for the interest of the people, curated around the people, whether it's policies and whether it's projects that are to be executed. I think another thing that comes to mind is altruism. I think a lot of selflessness, because it's a calling, it's service. So then if it's a calling and it's service for the people and to the people, then you have to be really selfless. But then I think that's one of the traits that lacks in a lot of our leaders, because it's the opposite of that. They're selfish. It is for their own interests. Anything that they do is not people-centric, I'd say. Yeah, I think also integrity. I don't think you can separate service leadership or leadership for the people and integrity. I think occupying public office, 95% of the work is integrity, only 5% is competence, I'd say. So I think also, so integrity, altruism, I've talked about it being people-centric. Another thing that would come to mind is also visionary. I think a leader has to be visionary, because then you're the vision bearer or the vision carrier of whichever constituent you represent, whichever group of people you represent. So if you aren't visionary, if you aren't seeing the picture that you are all aiming towards, then you have no business leading people. Yeah.
And talking of altruism,
Yeah.
have you been in spaces where it was practiced and you felt like?
Yeah, absolutely. I volunteer in a few organizations. I volunteer with Taifa Teule Network. I volunteered at least. I volunteer in a space called Shiriki, also in a space called Team Safi. And I think even because all of those are youth initiatives, youth-led, youth-driven, the people who volunteer, who commit their time, who commit their resources, who commit their skills, and whatever they have to the cause and for the cause, are coming from a very selfless point. Because, for example, facilitation in Taifa Teule, every weekend you're going to facilitate a group of people. Mostly it's a group of very young, probably university students, college students, or just transitioning into work. So you're using your money to get to whichever venue. A lot of your time goes there, and it's the weekend when every other young person in Nairobi is out and about. Yeah. But yeah, so then I've seen it from that lens, even from Ranja, the founder of all these initiatives and organizations. He could be chilling with his family on the weekends. He could be doing any other thing that someone his age could be doing. He could be making more money, but then he's committed and devoted himself to a cause, to elevate young people to a place where he thinks then they can help their communities and societies. So I think that's a lot of selflessness. Yeah.
And what is the goal of Team Safi?
Team Safi. So Team Safi is a political movement that's youth-led, youth-centric. Everything youth. It's a political movement of young people that speaks and even walk the talk on integrity. Because then, as I've mentioned, we think 95% of work that's needed in public office is integrity. We think that the problem that bedevils our society, our community, our governance and leadership systems, our structures, our own personal lives, is integrity or a lack of it. So then it's a political movement of young people who preach integrity, who remind people of why we need leaders that have integrity. And then also it's geared towards the culmination of it all would be the formation of a political party that's founded on the value of integrity, that's ran on that philosophy, yeah, because then a lot of our political parties lack philosophic directions. So then, yeah, so and then support young candidates who want to run campaigns that are clean. That is why our tagline is siasa safi, maisha safi. Because then if we don't bribe voters, I won't need to quote unquote recoup the money back after I get into positions. So then I will serve the people and will have good quality of life. So then siasa safi, maisha safi. So yeah, so that's why we are Team Safi. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. You've mentioned of bribery.
Yeah.
And what are other challenges that are facing political system in Kenya? And what role does Team Safi play so far?
So then there's corruption, of course. Yeah, corruption is a big it's a big issue, even in our personal lives, I'd say. As Kenyans, I think we are so used to it that it's become alien that someone isn't corrupt. We question. Yeah, you hear someone waited for their passport for 2 years. They look stupid. You hear someone wants to run a campaign and they don't want to bribe voters. It's like hujui vile huwa kunaenda, kwani how daft are you? So then that's the biggest issue, and that is I think where Team Safi comes in, because we think if we have an overturn of our thinking and our way of life and how we approach life when it comes to integrity, then we would have a change even in leadership. Because then these leaders are just a reflection of us. They're just as corrupt as we are, something that we never want to accept. The Bible, I think one of the favorite verses that I know in the Bible, and it's Swahili, I think it's because of how dramatic it is a word that says usitoe boriti ndani ya jicho la usitoe kibanzi ndani ya jicho la mwenzako na uko na boriti ndani ya jicho lako. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So then we are very quick at pointing fingers. Our leaders are this, our leaders are this. But then we are the same people who litter. We are the same people who bribe. We are the same people who jump lines. We are the same people who are so quick at looking for shortcuts. And we never see that these leaders just came from among us. They didn't come from a different world. So that's where Team Safi comes in. We also clean the communities. We have something we call Safisha Mtaa. So we go to communities, we clean communities, and then we preach integrity. We tell guys, you see how you want your estate to be clean? How you want your cars to be clean, because we also have Safisha Mtaas kwa car wash, where we wash guys' cars for free. Yeah.
You have like a car wash?
No. So we partner with a few initiatives also in the community, or partners in the community.
So the time you were here in Kawaskari?
Yeah.
It happened?
Yeah. We partnered with a church, PCA Kawaskari, and we cleaned the estate and all. And then we tell guys, you see how you want your estate to be clean? That's the same way we all want our politics, our governance structures to be clean. And if they are clean, then everyone else is happy. We have nothing to lose. So that's the approach. It's sort of a metaphor, the cleaning up of our communities, yeah. Another thing that I think affects leadership in Kenya is, I think, a lack of visionary leaders. I think we have a shortage of visionary leaders, and Parliament can be a good case study, because it's something that we hear a lot of times, what they are doing, what they intend to do. They've become an echo chamber of the executive. Yeah, they're supposed to be our representative, but they've forgotten that. They don't know what is expected of them. They don't know what they should do for their communities. They don't know the bills even and policies that are to be passed. Some even vote without reading those bills and policies. So we lack that. I think we also lack leaders with underpinning values and philosophies. I can easily tell you, say, for example, the Chief Justice Emeritus, David Kenani Maraga. He speaks, and every time he speaks about the rule of law, the fear of God, and integrity. So then you know his underpinning values, you know his personal philosophies, what what shapes his leadership style. Yeah. If we all think of the late Professor Wangari Maathai, we all know her philosophy, what she was geared towards. Yeah. But then pick a random member of parliament in Kenya. Yeah, ask the constituents, what do you think this guy is founded on? There's a lack of that, yeah, because then politics has become, the career that gives you the quick tunnel to quick riches instead of service leadership, people who are visionary, people with underpinning values. Yeah, so I think those are some of the things that I'd say are the challenges or problems that we have with our leadership systems. Yeah.
And do you have like a political leader that at the moment you look up to?
In Kenya?
Or anywhere?
Political, well, again, the Chief Justice Emeritus has announced his political ambition. So taking from that, I think it's someone that I really, really admire. His style of leadership. I'd even go to the extent of saying it's transformative. How bold he's been, what he's been able to effect. Yeah. Another person that I look up to, I think, is Ranja. He's vied twice, hasn't won.
Oh, it's twice.
Yeah, he's vied twice. 2022.
Oh,
yes. He ran for Kiambu Town Member of Parliament, but then again he had a personal philosophy and values that he wasn't watering down for anyone and anything, and that was integrity. And he stuck by that even when he knew that would cost him the seat. So I think that's something that I really admire, that level of conviction. The late Professor Wangari Maathai, someone, I think, we can only dream and hope to get to those levels. But what she sacrificed for the cause, from the hunger strikes, from whatever political intimidation, whatever political assault that she experienced, I think that level of conviction, even intrinsic conviction, is something that is to be admired. Maybe I'd finish by saying a former MP from where I come from, Mwatate constituency. So we had a member of parliament, it's in Taita, Taveta County. So we had a member of parliament called Mwatela, Kalist Mwatela. I was young then, so I didn't fully grasp how his leadership was all about, what it was all about, but I could still feel the changes that were happening in our community. For the first time, we saw a road being constructed, tarmacked road. We thought every road in Kenya has potholes because it was the norm. We saw a lot of schools coming up. He had a medical camp every year that was free, and you could be treated for anything, literally anything, even to the level of guys being taken for heart surgeries for free. And you see, because of the level of poverty, I'd say, in the area, guys would wait for the medical camp. You're sick, but you can't afford health and medication. But you have this glimmer of hope that somewhere towards the end of the year, I think it used to happen around September, November, there'll be a medical camp. Yeah.
Someone will wait for it from...
I think those are people that I really admire and look up to when it comes to leadership. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that is powerful.
Yeah.
So like when I look at I know there are those audience, including me, when you ask us like the role that you can play maybe to sharpen our political system, what will come to our mind is voting and maybe like just avoiding corruption, as you mentioned. What else do you think like a normal citizen can play beyond voting and maybe being the change? Like when they hear this term, you be the change, it's only voting, and what else do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest fallacy and misconception that we have, and I think our leaders thrive by it, and they keep reiterating that wait for 2027 if you want to make any change, but it's a lie. It's a lie. Article 1 of our constitution that I think has been said over and over again, that all sovereign power belongs to the people. We have this power. We did not let it be usurped by the leaders that we have. We did not, give it with acquiescence to them. We delegated the power to them. Delegation, Martin, would mean we can take it back at any particular point. And that is why we even have processes for recalling a member of parliament if you feel like they're not exercising the power that you delegated to them as ought to be, or as you had envisioned it would be used. Yeah. So then our role as citizens doesn't end at the ballot. We shouldn't wait, or we aren't supposed to wait for 2027 or whichever year to effect change. There are various avenues that we can use. One, for example, is public participation. Every bill that is tabled before Parliament, after the first reading, that bill is subjected to public participation. During that window, public participation window, you can submit your views and comments. So then we are able to shape policies in the country. Last year, for example, finance bill, a lot of views were submitted on the finance bill, yeah, and there was a lot of dialogue around it. So that's one of the avenues. You can petition Parliament. You can even submit a legislative proposal, meaning, as Martin, if I want change, say, in the art space, in the music industry, I feel like there is no law policy that shields us as artists, or I would want to make a few amendments or changes to copyrights and how we approach IP rights in the country. With the help of other artists and, say, lawyers or anyone, we can come up with a legislative proposal and then give it to a member of parliament, or who would then table it in the floor of the house. And then you're able to shape policies and laws, or even discussions around it. What we can also do is, I think, citizen-driven accountability. I think that's one of the most powerful ways to participate, because Kenya is a democracy, which means with democratic governance, that then means that we can take part in our own governance. It is for the people, by the people, of the people. Yeah. So then we aren't supposed to sit down and let other people lead. We can also take part in leading ourselves. So accountability. Asking a member of parliament, you had 89 million of NGCDF, give us a breakdown of it. How was each coin used? Telling people, okay, you went and took a debt from China of 1 trillion. Why? Were we involved when you're going to take the debt, so that we know what is the debt coming to do? Do we need it? Yeah. So telling our leaders, you promised us this and this and this and this. We are halfway through your term as a member of parliament, as an MCA, as a governor. What are you doing? What have you done so far? This was your manifesto. What have you effected in your manifesto? Telling leaders, no, we don't want this policy. We want this. We want it to be this way. Citizen-driven accountability is very, very powerful. And it's one of the tools that we can use, one of the avenues that we can use to make sure that the leadership that we have is for us. Otherwise, then we leave our power, which is very well articulated and pronounced in Article 1 of our Constitution, to this group of people that we don't even trust to use it in whichever way until the next election cycle. And then the consequent effects of that are very dire. We can't even recover. We can't even wait for the consequences to happen. Yeah. Yes. So I think just consciously being an active citizen, and being an active citizen means eternal vigilance. It means you looking at every law that is coming up, having conversations, making noise, shaping dialogue in whichever space or community you exist in, questioning things, calling your leaders to account. That is what being an active citizen means, and it doesn't start and end at the ballot. It is eternal. Yeah.
Yeah, that is I'm amazed. Yeah. That is powerful.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself? Have you ever considered yourself as a future political leader, or like have you ever seen yourself in that lenses?
Yeah, I'd be honest, yeah.
And which position will you consider? Will you be so interested?
If
the future president.
amen, yeah. If I was to run for office, I'd say member of parliament. I think I'm best suited, given my career path. I'm a lawyer by training, so then how policies are shaped, my line of work currently. And I think parliament and the legislature as an arm of government is one of the strongest, because then it oversights the executive. There's a lot of power. That's one thing that people don't know. Parliament is very powerful. Yeah. And then you're representing the people. I think it's either in Rome or Greek where they refer to parliament as the people's palace. So it's members of parliament who are there, but you know, the voices that are there should be the aspirations of the common citizen. And I feel like I would really, really want that for my people, and that would be a good space to effect change. But even before then, I think leadership doesn't necessarily have, need to have a title, plastered on it. I would even say I'm a leadership in the various communities and spaces that I exist in, by virtue of Taifa Teule leadership network. I think I've taken part in training young people as a young person to effect change in their community. And I think we viewed leadership as long as you can identify a problem in your community, then create a solution for that problem, you're a leader. So that is how I view myself. But absolutely, I think I'm also tired of complaining about the leadership that is in our country. And that is why we have Team Safi and the likes, because then change will only happen if we effect change, if we become the change that we so much want to see, even as cliche as that would sound. And so with the right environment, with the right support, why not? Yeah.
And what are your future hopes on our political system?
I think with every Kenyan right now, we'd even start from, is there hope? Yeah. Is there hope? How gleam is our country? How bleak is it? And I think my only source of hope and inspiration is the young people. I think I go back to June last year, especially June 25th, a lot of times in my head. And it's a source of hope and inspiration in a lot of ways. We brought not the country to a standstill, but the continent, the world, to a standstill. We showed how much power we really have, even when everyone has been showing and telling us, or even reiterating the feeling that we are powerless, which was a feeling that had cut across a lot of young people. And that is why there was a lot of apathy, because we believed we can't change. The system is rigged, the system is corrupt, so we can't effect any change. But June last year has been something that carries me through. Our young people, the fact that there's a lot of willingness right now to collect our voices, our efforts to effect changes in our society. I'm seeing a lot of people conducting civic education for free. I'm seeing a lot of people yearning to be part of change. And the only problem is there are very few existing structures or people, individuals that support that. So I think the challenge even to the older generations would be, don't let the candle go out. How then can you contribute to the spark that started last year? how can you contribute to the cause, to the fire that a lot of these young people have. Otherwise, we would say that there would be little to no hope to cling on right now in the country. Yeah.
That is, yeah. So my another question is, like, you talked about like what happened. Like, I recognize what happened there.
Yeah.
But what normally happens when, like, maybe someone is truly advocating for integrity.
Yeah.
But I know leaders who are here today, and before they got that post, they were truly advocating for integrity. What normally happens? Why do you think people normally change after being given that power? Then now it's citizen against them. Then we get another person who anatupea hope. Then things changes when we get that power. What normally happens?
I think I tell a lot of my friends that we really need to think about the how and the why. I think leaders who articulate and they know the why, then they wouldn't change. But the system changes you or tarnishes you because of the how, and the how is how you got into power. So then I'm preaching leadership, but then I come and realize the only way to win a political seat would be to bribe the voter. Then that's the how. But they'd be telling themselves, and I'm assuming they'd be lying to themselves, that it's to get into the system so that I can change it from there. But if you've corrupted yourself at this point of how you get into the leadership position, at this point of articulating your vision to the ordinary voter, then you get in there, you don't stand a chance. Yeah, and I think that is what happens to a lot of leaders, and it comes to us as a surprise that so and so was so good, so and so even had a song for this, so and so even did this and this, but now they've gotten into the system and they are now part of the problem as opposed to being a solution. But we never question how they got in there, that they bribed their voter. So at that particular juncture, there was a lack of integrity. And I think the system swallows you whole if you lack this conviction. And that is why I have a lot of admiration for people like Ranja, and leaders like Wangari Maathai and the likes, because of why, your why, and because you don't let the how tarnish you, then you still hold your dignity and conviction at the very end. The system doesn't stand a chance to tell you, but you did this and this, you're just like us anyway. You get, you can take this money, help your people, and keep quiet, or this and this and this. So yeah, so I think as voters, we never caution that, because we are part of the problem. We want to partake even in that corruption, and we listen to people's words when it's really their actions that should tell us who they really are. So you come tell me that you do this and this and this and this, but you're bribing me to be convinced of what you can do for me. You're paying me to trust you to deliver me from where I'm at. Yeah, I think we really need to think and to introspect as Kenyans on why we have the problems that we have in our country. Yeah.
And also about funding. Like, I know there are those people maybe who can't manage to raise a certain amount of money, and then there are political investors. There are those people who invest in politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a certain agenda.
Yeah.
That also plays a role, right?
A very key role. Yeah, I think in some books I've read, they refer to as a political mafia. Yeah, it's rich people, they have the resources. You're running for office, they tell you, listen, you probably need 1,000 per voter in your constituency. How much do you have? You have 300,000. they tell you need around 60 million to win a seat. Here is 40. But when you get there, we need this and this and this and this and that. And so then you think, oh, the end justifies the means. Eventually I'll be there and I'll help my people. But then when you're there with no allegiance to the people. You owe your allegiance to this group of people who funded your campaigns. And that is why I really admire how even politics run in the US, because even look at Kamala Harris, the campaigns and the funding. Even normal and common citizens who are funding her campaigns, $200, $100, etc. And in Kenya, unfortunately, it's businessmen and this political mafia, and more often than not with ulterior motives. If they're funding the campaign because they really believe in your cause, and they believe in your vision and what you can do for your people, I think that would be excellent, because then they're also doing that as citizens, with the means. But more often than not, we really let our country go to the cracks because of crooks, because of people who we've let be the puppet masters. So I think we really need to also fund our own salvation come 2027. We think, okay, they say, and researches have been done in the country of how much you need to run for certain political offices. You'd absolutely be shocked by the numbers. You'd even wonder why wouldn't someone start a business with the money, or even run an industry with the money. A lot of money. It's crazy amounts of money. So then you ask, where does that money go? Why do you need so much money? But 98% of that money goes into bribing the voters. So if we decide that we are supporting Martin as a young person and we won't take anything from him, Martin won't need 60 million like everyone else. Martin would need $1 million. Registration. We help him with even the poster designs. We help him with carrying the conversations to the villages and to the market. And Martin won't need the crazy amounts of money that we've been told we need, because what that does is it creates a barrier, a systemic barrier for people who aren't economically empowered to go for these positions. Who isn't economically empowered in our communities? Young people, and I'd even say women. Young people from, is it 70% or 75% of the population, but only 30% are employed in government. I think less than 30% are employed in government. Young people are from the largest group of people who are unemployed in the country. Young people are just starting out, so a lot of them are in entry-level jobs, not paying as much. They are starting out their businesses, so it's that point of you trying to stabilize. You barely scrapping around capital, etc. You don't have much to work with. So then they are disenfranchised because they can't go for these seats, because it's crazy amounts of money needed. Money that is only like the only groups of people that would have such amounts of money are people who've been there for long, and they've pocketed a lot of money or saved a lot of money over the years, and they have these resources to go for these positions. So it creates a systemic barrier for really young visionary leaders in our communities. Just same things that I mentioned, by becoming an active citizen and asking yourself, so this is the type of leadership I want in the country. What can I do to help the cause? We all possess skill sets and a level of influence in our communities. That in itself would be a win for whichever young leader one who wants to go for a political position. So then you can design posters, you can do podcasts. This would be a space for a young leader to come share their vision. You can even be an amplifier for the manifesto of that young leader in whichever space that you're in the society. whether in church, whether in your businesses, in your day-to-day activities. You can do t-shirt branding, you can do whichever skill set that you have. You can do civic education, you can do any other thing, that you have a family, that you have a level of influence, your friend groups, your friends, even telling your friend, yo, let's go register as, like, let's go take voters card, let's go vote, let's go listen to what this person has to say, and measure it against what others have to say. Let's challenge this person to do this and this and this. That in itself is becoming part of the change. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial. We have resources in a lot of other ways. So yeah.
And thanks to something like TLX,
it
has created a lot of awareness.
Have
you ever interacted with any organization that it's something close to TLX, excluding Shiriki and Team Safi?
I think in the civil society space, there are a lot of organizations that try to effect change, a lot of organizations trying to do civic education in one way or the other, a lot of organizations trying to even support. There are some organizations that try to support young people with political ambitions, youth with political ambitions, women with political ambitions, whether it is holding forums or seminars for them, etc. I just think a lot more could be done, because I think in the civil society there's a lot of reliance on donor funding, something that is fast changing across the world. So then it's not a sustainable way of doing it. I think it needs to come from our community, our societies. So there are a lot of organizations. We probably know several between us. If you go to social media, there are others that are there. Even in our communities, wanasemaga wamekuja kuhamasisha vijana, kuhamasisha wamama on one or two things. So I know a lot, unless you wanted me to mention them.
Not really. You've answered my question. So my another question is, maybe in case there is any other youth out here who may be the solution for funding, and may decide to go with the approach of maybe creating awareness, and they came up with a good organization, but when it comes to sustainability, the fundings that he is getting are not appropriate. So what do you think could be a sustainable way? If you are the person who want to create maybe an organization from scratch today, and you want to make it as sustainable as possible for the long run, without depending on the overseas maybe funding, how will you go about it? How will it look like?
I think something that I've learned is to first ask myself, what can I do without money? What do I have? Money aside, so what can I work with? What skills do I have? My network. They say your network is your net worth. So within my network, can do one or two or three things that I need done before I think about funding. So I think that's a very sustainable way of looking at it, because funding doesn't kill you. It doesn't become a do or die thing. It only supplements your work. It only complements your work. So I think that's one of the things. But I think it is to also challenge the older generations. And even Africans. I think we have created this culture of donor reliance in our country, which should change, because then we aren't able to effect change in the way that we want to. So even when it comes to funding, for it to be sustainable, I think it should first stem from our communities and within ourselves. So whether it's church supporting youth initiatives, whether it's businesses within a community supporting youth initiatives within that community, before we even think of outside the country. So yes.
And on an individual level, like I know everyone had their own experience in TLX? Like, was TLX a game changer for you? It was like when you interacted with TLX, was it something new? Because the way you're talking, I kind of feel like you've been in that space for a lifetime or something. So, like, was TLX a game changer for you? And if it was, how was it a game changer for you?
I think I don't even think I'm 100% sure that, and I won't be exaggerating when I say Taifa Teule Leadership Network changed my life. Because for the longest time possible, I knew what I wanted. I knew what I had in mind, the ideas, how I wanted to help my community, etc. But I didn't know where to start from. And I didn't have a community to do that with. So what Taifa Teule readily gave me, apart from the sharpening my skills throughout the 10 weeks, was I now met this community of like-minded young people who wanted to effect as much change as I did, who are hungry for change in the country as much as I was. And so we would meet over the weekends and we would go through the classes and eventually effected a community project from scratch. I think what also that does is show young people how much power they have in effecting change in the community. We don't need to wait for our leaders. We don't need to wait for funding, because we fundraised from scratch. We designed whatever community project that we wanted to do, and then we executed. And it brought so much satisfaction and that realization that, wait, we can actually be who we admire or who we want other people to be. We can actually become that. We don't need to be the leaders of tomorrow and whatever rhetoric we've been fed over the years. We can actually be the leaders in whatever way that we are, and in whichever form. So that is the power of Taifa Teule, and that is the impact that it had on my life. And so I started volunteering as a training facilitator because I wanted to even effect that same experience to other young people. And then as a senior facilitator in Umoja, really proud seeing other young people executing a community project. And then when I became a presiding facilitator, also seeing what classes in different counties are doing. I think it was Nairobi County, Machakos County, Kajiado, Kiambu. So now it's even grown. Then it was that way. But now it's grown to other locations in other different parts of the country. And more young people are realizing that they can do way more than they have been thinking they have the power to. So yeah.
And do you have like maybe personal project per se, something that you would want to implement after consuming all this? Like, just, it can be of your own. Do you have like something like that in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually interesting because I'm actually having a meeting with two of my friends from home in Taita. We are brainstorming about what we can actually do within
lawyers.
No, not necessarily. I think there's a lot of buzz with being a lawyer, but it's even different fields. We are just from home. In Taita, we know that the challenges that we've went through growing up, the challenges that still exist, the gaps that exist in leadership. So we're asking ourselves, because we can't really keep waiting for leaders, for politicians to come effect that change. What more can we do? So we're actually thinking around that, or hoping the culmination of it is a successful project or different projects in the county. But other than that, as a personal initiative, I think I make it as a personal initiative to do a lot of civic education. Talking to my friends, I've had friends who absolute apathy, who are trapped in absolute apathy, but they are now very vocal about politics and leadership and governance. and that makes me happy, and that in itself is a level of change. I don't need to buy a water tank, brand it Mwamburi. Yeah, that in itself is change. We in Team Safi we say shifting the mindset of the average Kenyan voter. So that in itself is a personal initiative and a collective project that we have. Yeah.
That is powerful. So for TLX, you joined when you are already pursuing law,
Yeah, I joined TLX when I was in third year in law school.
How did you know TLX?
A friend from class shared a poster on their status, and they're like, oh, yeah, during that recruitment period, or if you want to join this, whatever, and it sparked my interest. And then, yeah, I reached out to the number. I think it's Kama from TLX who called me, told me, oh, we have classes here and here. So I went for the Ngara class. It was just starting because it was near school. Yeah, so all my weekends, all my Saturdays, I was no longer watching Arsenal games. Yeah, they were dedicated to Taifa Teule.
What were you looking for there?
That community. And yeah, that community, so that I convinced myself, one, I'm not stupid, I'm not crazy, that I have these persistent thoughts about change and everything. And then a place to start from, which a lot of young people don't have in the country, whether it's business-wise, whether it's... So you have ideas, you have drive, you have hunger, but then where are you channeling it? How do you even start? So yeah, so that is what I was looking for then. Yeah, and it really gave me a sense of purpose once I found it. Yeah.
And you also happen to be into poetry.
Yeah.
Where did you get that from?
I've always loved. I love live it literature. I think I read a lot of books. A lot of lessons that I've learned over the years are from books, other people's lives that they've shared through books. I think I was drawn into poetry in high school. English, kid you not, English paper 2 had poetry. And my high school teacher then would read those poems in a way that I don't know, it felt different. It didn't feel like class or a lesson and etc. And then also when I was very young, I had stumbled upon songs of Lawino and songs of Okol, a book, a collection of songs and poems by Okot Pabitek from Uganda. I think they were written even in the 60s or 70s. And I thought they were a funny way of relaying a message, and a fun way of relaying a message. And so high school, and then we had a high school newsletter, and there was a competition of write poems, and Nini submit, and one will be selected. So I wrote a shairi, not a poem then, a shairi, think about my mom or something, and then I submit, and then it was rejected.
You have a good choice of Kiswahili words. Those like Rafiki.
Yeah.
It's something that I stick with.
Yeah, when I infuse them into my writing. Yeah. So yeah, and then I submitted. But you know, with the newsletters in high school, it's school kids from Nairobi who are running the editorial, whatever. Of the club. It didn't go through, but after high school I went to teach in a community school that we have in Taita, and I wrote poems for them for the music festival, and they were going through stages. They proceeded, I think, to the provincials or something, which is nowadays referred to as regionals. But yeah, and then I was like, okay, maybe I'm not that bad. Pin 1 and 2. And I started reading a lot of poems. Sarah Aluko. I started reading a lot of Robert Frost.
So can you take us through maybe that consumption process? Like you will just, like for a novel, you'll just read all of it and that's it. So for you, like you analyze, you just read and Like, how do you
How do I read?
consume it?
How do I consume? I think it depends. So there are things that are constant in how I read every week. So there's a blog newsletter journal that I've subscribed to, called Isolation Journals, by one of my favorite, if not favorite, authors, called Suleika Jawad. She shares a blog that should sort of act as a prompt to journaling. So I read that religiously every Monday because she releases it on Sunday. Then there's one by Maria Popova. It's a blog. Within the blog, she shares a poem that she's written, something that I also read weekly.
And
so then
for the poem resonates with the blog.
Yeah.
Or they resonate.
Yeah, more often than not, they resonate with the blog.
Okay.
So that's consistent. And then there are pages I've followed on social media. So then, depending on whatever world events are happening, for example, in Palestine, you'd have a journalist sharing a poem from there, and they'd amplify it and I'd read. And it's what I think poetry and art really helps with, and even reading, is empathy and sparking your imagination. Because I'm not in Palestine, I don't know their lived experiences, but through this poetry and these words, then I'm really, really able to relate to them to an extent. So with how I consume it, now there are books I read as every other person. I only try to read fiction and memoirs if it's non-fiction. Yeah, so I think I consume a lot of literature in a week. Doesn't necessarily have to be books. There's also, for the sake of fiction, Biko Zulu. I think it's a famous blog in the country by Jackson Biko. I have been reading it, I think, religiously since 2020. He's a Kenyan writer. He's done, I think, 3 books. Don't know why I'm doing his advertising, but yeah, he's one of my favorite authors also. Something I read religiously. And yeah, so I feel like a lot of people best express themselves through art. Art really allows you to do that. And that is why I think it has a huge role to play in whichever facet of the community, even in our governance and leadership. Yes.
And with your experience, where do you get comfortable with between performing and just writing? Where are you so confident in?
Writing. I run a blog. I run a blog on Substack called Kahawatungu. Yeah.
That is your Instagram name.
Yeah, that's also my Instagram name. So Kahawatungu, I run a blog on Substack. I used to have one on WordPress called The Unpopular Opinion. So then I use those as avenues to express myself. I've tried performing though. I think a friend of mine called Wafula, a lot of people know him by his stage name Razini, was releasing an EP. He was releasing his first EP, and he was like, yo, I feel like for each of these songs you could do a piece and then you come and perform. And I was like, for the sake of it being a challenge, let me go try perform.
I'm not getting, like, for each song you created a piece.
Yeah.
Or just based on the story of the song, or
based on the song and what, because Razini is a crazy artist, and it's this EP, and every song in the EP has a message and they are sort of interconnected, and he's relaying it to the audience. So he was actually creating sort of an experience. So I took the challenge and I performed, and I think I wouldn't mind doing more performances. I just wouldn't say I'm a performer. Yeah.
And what is your greatest goal at the moment? First, what are you currently? What is this most interesting thing you are into currently?
Apart from civic education, making noise about leadership and governance, trying to do community projects, I think a lot of my time goes into that. What's my greatest goal? I think I look at life from the lenses of mortality a lot of times, from a place of it can end. I think our egos are so big as humans. We know there is death, but we never really think it can happen to us.
Yeah.
And what I think that has allowed me to do is to then think, what do I want people to say Mwamburi was? What impact, what influence do I want to be remembered for? And that is why also I think my sense of purpose on leadership and governance comes in, creating solutions in my community. So yeah, because then you're always remembered for how you made people feel, really. So whether it's through my writing or through the work that I do or through whichever space that I exist in, that I'm able to leave impact, then that is so. Yeah.
It's interesting and motivating.
Yeah.
Because like as I am meeting people, and even like there was a time that I didn't have a purpose in life.
Yeah.
So there are those people who don't have it, and it like life is just different. Life is totally different for those who have it or who don't have it.
Yeah.
So do you consider yourself as a lucky person?
Absolutely. By virtue of breathing and being healthy right now, I'm lucky. I haven't won any raffle ticket or any competition, hapo inje, any jackpot. But I think really, I would say really grateful for the spaces I exist in, for the kind of people that I've met over the country, for the community that I have around me. Yeah, really grateful for that. Yeah,
that is a good answer, and this is why there was a point in life I wouldn't I do experience those phases that I don't consider myself as a lucky person. So the main reason I ask you this, like in life we have like 3 types of relationships. So we have like the first level. The first level is those people who you just know, just general traits, where they stay, where they live, the school they are in, what maybe their talent maybe. Those general traits. And then the second relationship is their personal traits. Now this is deep. Now it can be their purpose, their goal in life, things like those. So on our third traits is on our third level of relationships. Now these are the people who we know, like it's deep. Like we know their struggles, their journey. So it can be maybe their journey. Like even if I know what they're passionate about on the second level, I know like how their journey towards this passion. I know how they fight, how they relax, things like those. So in this level, kuna like you can know someone as a hero, or as a healer, or as a victim. So for a hero, maybe someone who started from scratch and then created something of their own. For healers, these are people purely with empathy. Just like creating a better society, better, like just showing up. And then for victims, now when they are asked that question, do you consider yourself as a lucky person? They don't feel like a lucky person. So you are a healer or a hero.
Amen.
But it takes a lot for me to like notice on our third level of relationships. Someone who can say your correct narrative, self-narrative. So these are self-narrative. If you're a healer or a hero or a victim, someone who can say it well now. I think your mom will do it well, because he's the most closest person. Maybe your partner, if you have one at the moment, they can say that. So but I will consider you as a healer from this conversation. I'll consider you as a healer.
Thank you so much, Martin. And also for like using your podcast to shape conversations, especially around mental health. I've watched several episodes, and the guests you've hosted. It's not something that should be taken for granted. I think you're really instigating a lot of conversations that our society hasn't found comfortable having, and we thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I am humbled.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my last guest,
Yeah.
he was Felix. I know you've interacted with him, but he left a question for you.
Yeah.
And he will leave another question for my guest.
Yeah.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
Here is you can just read it through and a full. You tell us your.
How big would you dream if you knew for certain you couldn't fail? Wow. How big would I dream if I knew for certain I couldn't fail? Very. I think I would dream very big. But I think also that this is me. I think I glide through life with a lot of audacity, and yeah, what young people our age usually call delusion. Yeah, delulu. So I think that's how I live my life. I really dream big. Failure is part of the process. It's not the end of the process. And success isn't necessarily the end of the things that I dream with, but I consider even the process in itself and how I approach it as success. One of my favorite athletes is Muhammad Ali. He was a heavyweight boxer in the 70s, 60s, I think. And he often said that impossible is nothing. That impossible is a word thrown around by small men who don't believe in the power of their dreams. And I think it's something that sticks with me a lot. That nothing really is impossible. It's all possible. And I hope that I have the courage to live life from these lenses that Felix alluded to. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful that you came.
Yeah.
And you are the right person for the topic. Like, I've really learned a lot, and yeah, it was more than I expected. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much, Martin. It was really lovely to be here. And yeah, we'll be also looking forward to the other episodes that you'll be doing. Shukran, man. Shukran.
Thank you for our dear viewers. You're the part of the reason why we keep on doing what we are doing. So have a great time ahead as we are waiting for the next episode. Thank you.